Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for October 1st, 2024. Well, yesterday was quite a roller coaster ride after we heard some news from Jerome Powell sending the market sharply lower, and then it whipsawing and rebounding all the way back up to close the diamonds and the SPY at a new record high, but it really didn't change anything. So how about we take a look at what happened overnight? Well, first off, if we take a look at Asian markets, we have a lot of Asian markets closed. Hong Kong's closed, Shanghai's closed, South Korea's closed today. Shanghai will be closed for the rest of the week, as a matter of fact, for their holiday. And right now we have a little bit of a mix. We've got Asian markets down 0.74%. The Nikkei had a good day last night, up 1.93%. And India being down just slightly at 0.05%. If we take a look at European markets this morning, we also have a little bit of a mix after they had their inflation number came out showing a little bit lower, just below 2%. DAX right now is up 0.26%. The FTSE is up 0.36%, and the CAC is down 0.21% this morning. And U.S. futures also at this moment just a little bit on the mixed side. We've got the diamonds down 0.29%, S&P 500 futures down 0.01%, and the NASDAQ futures up 0.18%. So a little bit of softness as we begin the first day of trading in the fourth quarter. If we take a look at bonds this morning, bonds are a little bit down here today, and our bond prices, if we take a look at those, our 2-year bond coming in at 3.61%, the 10-year bond 3.74%, and the 30-year at 4.07%. Looking at oil this morning, we've had quite a little bit going on in the Middle East with conflict worries, a ground incursion by Israel, and we're seeing a little bit of tension growing over into that area, which certainly worries the market. It's remarkable how the market tends to ignore, but at this point, but that could begin to start to worry things, and particularly in the oil area. But if we take a look at XLE popping and dropping here just a little bit this morning on those producers, and OIH also doing kind of the same thing, with oil futures right now down 40 cents at 67.77 a barrel. And Brent crude is down 41 cents at 71.03 a barrel. Natural gas is also just a little bit lower here this morning, down just over 4 cents in the pre-market. So looking at UNG and Boyle, we've got just a little bit of a tiny decline here this morning. Let's take a look at our precious metals. Precious metals making a little bit of a rebound here this morning. Gold showing that little bit of a bounce back up here after pulling back the last couple of trading days here in the market. Right now, gold futures are up $10.90 an ounce. And if we take a look at silver also bouncing just a tiny little bit. And we've got copper up this morning, trying to bounce up just a tiny little bit. Platinum is up. However, palladium is still a little bit lower after a pretty substantial move down yesterday. And then if we take a look at our crypto markets, crypto's trying to bounce back here today. If we take a look at BITO, It is showing a gap down here this morning, but we've actually got Bitcoin up $474 a coin after that pretty ugly selling yesterday. Ether is up $45 a coin, or 1.74%, and we're mostly green across the board in those crypto markets this morning, so keep a close eye on that. So what does all that mean for today? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Tuesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Hey, a big shout out and thank you to everyone who came to the e-learning session last night, 8 p.m. Eastern. We talked about some position trading and hedging and managing those trades, and had a nice turnout yesterday. But as a result, it's kind of a complicated issue that we talked about with a lot of questions. I decided to open the RWO room to everyone today, so that folks could come in and ask their questions. So today, if you go to the Hit and Run Candlesticks website, come to the RWO room, there is no password required. You can come on in. Love to have you this morning, and I'll do my best to answer your questions today. Let's take a look at our index charts here this morning and see if we can gain some information about how we might want to approach the market for today. And remember, we want to look at the markets for what they are and not for what we want them to be. Now, overall, when you take a look at the diamonds, this is a bullish chart and it's setting up in a bullish pattern. But if you guys remember, last Monday, I suggested that we were likely going to be in a consolidating area of the market. That certainly has been the case, and that's not a brag, but you can see in here, we're just resting in here. This is pretty common for this kind of year. We did widen that out with that gap up here, but essentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we're starting day 9 in a total price range of 1.88% in the diamonds. So the chop zone is real, and it's still holding in a bullish pattern, but we're seeing a lot of consolidation. Remember, we're in the corporate buyback blackout period. We're waiting on the next round of earnings that will be starting until the 11th of October, because that's when we begin the big bank reports. You can take a look at GPM, big bank report starting on the 11th. So you'll want to be watching that closely here. We could see an awful lot of choppiness continue here in the market. Now, if the bulls find inspiration here today, well, first thing we need to do is break out of the top of this little box right here. Although we had a record high close, it's only by a tiny little amount. It made a little bit of news, but if we can get inspiration from those bulls, then our next step would be to come up here and see if we can attack that all-time high print, and then of course it's blue sky above there. If the bears were to find inspiration here in the chart, well, maybe a pushback down to test the lower side of this support, and support right in here and trend would be the next area that I would be watching for that to catch. And we're only going to raise some concern in the market if we were to break below that area. That's where probably a little bit of fear would come up in the market. If we take a look at our SPY, also in that consolidating box, 9th day in here. Now this one, we're closer to the top of that box, as you can see right here in the chart. Let me see if I can fix my drawing tool again. The idiotic thing likes to change on its own. So you can see right in here, testing the resistance of that area. New record high close yesterday. in the SPY. Can we get a follow through to break through into blue sky high today? Well, we'll see as we progress through the day and the data that we have coming. And then blue sky above. If the bears, however, were to find some inspiration, well, you can certainly see we've got the lower side of that could be tested in here. And if we were to push down into here, then the next level, of course, right down here into this price support of the chart is where I'd be looking and maybe coming into that upside trend right here to see if we test that upside trend. Beyond that point, we might come down to the bottom side of this consolidating zone here in the chart. And that might raise just a little fear in the market if we were to push down in there on any data that the market is not too happy with. If we take a look at QQQ, very much the same, just a wider chop zone really running between here and here. You can see we pushed up pretty nicely at the end of the day yesterday, and we are trying to get a little follow through here on the QQQ. So we'll see if we can push on through that area, and you can see getting up through here would be a really big deal for the Qs. If we could push through that level, then we could start moving through to maybe even come up and then try to attack those all-time highs here in the NASDAQ. If the bears, however, find inspiration, we've got a little tiny bit of price support right here if we were to push back. Beyond that, probably looking at this area down here to test some support. Again, the next level down, you can see it right through here on the chart, and then coming back in here to this side trend. So wouldn't be damaging to the market if that were to occur. I don't believe it would be breaking of that trend that would raise some concern in the NASDAQ. And if we look at our IWM, well, our Russell still in that resting pattern. Again, a little bit wider pattern here with a high up in this area. So if the bulls can find inspiration here today, the first thing we need to do is probably break through the resistance right in here. Pop up through there, and then we can start reaching back up to see if we can retest this area up here. Beyond that point, if we break through up here, that'd be a pretty big deal for IWM as well, and we might start stretching up to those highs that run all the way back here to 21 and 2022. There's a significant level right there in price action on the Russell. And if we look at the bearish side of this, if the bears were to push, well, it's pretty easy to see here. This little support area in the chart, we'd watch for that to test and hold, and if that were to fail, pushing on down, I'm going to suggest some areas down in here would probably be the next level of price support. Beyond that, we could come down into this trend. You'll notice if we break down below this trending area here in the chart, well, we run that risk of falling into a gap over here. So notice this gap, and then we could start pushing back toward this upside trend here in the chart. Breaking down below here is where that real fear would start coming into the market. We'll have to keep a pretty close eye on it if those bears were to engage. If we take a look at our VIX here in the market, our VIX rallied yesterday, started to show a little bit of concern, and then that surge right at the end of the day back up kind of eased the pressure on that. But you'll notice we came up through this little trend to the downside, and we did peak through the other side before we faded back on the day. So if the bears were to find inspiration, we're going to be looking for that push to the upside in here. We might start looking at some of these price levels right across here to see if we can break higher in that chart. And remember, breaking that downtrend is not the biggest worry. It would be holding at a higher low that would be the worry. And if the bulls can find inspiration, well, let's look for a push back down, see if we can retest this area of support here in the chart on the VIX. Then taking a look at our T20s, our T2122 indicator, we did pull back a little bit yesterday, but then that rally back up keeps us pretty elevated in T2122. So we have some room here with that selling yesterday. If the bulls can find inspiration in the market, well, we could stretch this on higher here, get back into that bullish reversal zone, bearish reversal zone, if we can find that inspiration. However, if the bears were to be inspired today, then a pushback, we've got way more opportunity to the downside. If those bears get going. So once again, I'm going to remind everyone to continue to raise your stops, stay with the trend, but try to remember that the markets don't go up forever. We'll always find some kind of a reason to get a little profit-taking pullback that relieves some pressure, improves some of the pricing on stocks. So a pullback is something we need to be watching for, or nothing else, more of a resting consolidation, which I think we have the possibility could continue till maybe the 11th of the month. And then if we take a look at T2108, T2108, we're in a consolidating zone here in the market, pushing up here toward that 70%. Now remember, when we start reaching up past into the mid 70s up here, we're really reaching an extreme overbought area in the market. So we're pressing some resistance levels in here, but we just don't seem to have a whole lot of momentum. Volumes have been struggling here in the market. It's been kind of tough. But if we can pump through this area here, then I would start looking up here toward that mid 70s here in the chart and up toward that extreme area of the market. Now, if the bears were to be inspired today, we'll have pushed down in here. Probably not going to hurt us too bad as long as we can hold onto some of those support levels. But one thing is for sure, bulls are in control. They seem to be very, very happy here in the market. They can't seem to find a whole lot of momentum to follow through, but they are very bullish and wanting to continue to push. And T2107, very much the same. We're up here testing some resistance in the chart. You can see it finished the day just a little bit lower yesterday. If we push up in here into these mid 65 areas, that's an extreme overbought condition for stocks above the 200-day moving average. And of course, if the bears were to be inspired, we've got some good support in there to hold as well. But on that side of bullishness, everything continues to lean to that bullish side. And then if we take a look at T2101, well, this is why we're not seeing the volume, we're not seeing the follow through of the market. Market breadth continues to fall, and it's likely to continue in this pattern. We'll get some kind of a bounce back up, but we're likely going to see this continuation because corporate buybacks and uncertainty about the next round of earnings continues to crop up or creep up, and we are seeing that blackout period having a substantial effect on the market breadth. So just keep an eye on that. If that possibility this continues to pull back, you shouldn't be surprised. And you shouldn't be surprised if the market remains in kind of a choppy consolidating area as we're waiting. So let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today, and our economic calendar has a couple of things that we'll want to be paying attention to, and I can't believe I don't have that right here. Give me just a second. Okay, here it is. There's our economic calendar, and for today we've got a few things to be paying attention to. We're going to get a PMI manufacturing number in here. Consensus is looking for that to come in at 47. Remember, anything under 50 continues to show contraction in the market, and they're looking for that to decline here just a little bit. Remember, we largely just ignore manufacturing today in favor of big tech. So keep an eye on that. No one seems to care about these numbers right now. We also continue to see ISM in a contraction still, but they're looking for a little improvement on that for 47.2 to a 47.6. Remember, 50 is flatline. Anything above 50 shows that manufacturing sector is growing. Anything below 50 shows it is still in contraction. If we take a look beyond that, we're going to have construction spending numbers. They're looking at those construction spending numbers to kind of stay flat here at a negative 0.3 on construction spending. So watch that. We've got the job openings report this morning, looking for that to move back up just a little bit, from 76.73 million to 77 million here in the job openings report. So watch that carefully. If we move on through the rest of the day, we've got Treasury buyback announcement. We've got a bunch of Fed speak this week. Bostic will be speaking twice today, and there's a convention here with the Federal Reserve President. So kind of keep an eye on any releases from central banks can have movement in the market. Then, of course, we've got a little tiny bond auction here. As we look into Wednesday, as you're preparing for Wednesday, remember we're going to come in with the ADP report after those mortgage applications and motor vehicle sales. We've got several Fed speakers out there, petroleum status in there, and a little bill auction going off in the middle of the day. So kind of keep an eye on that. Pretty light on the day. Also, when we take a look at earnings, well, it's pretty light, but we've got a few more going on this morning than we did yesterday. This morning, notable reports, we've got AYI on that list, trying to push up here in this nice little pattern, but you can see it's a little flat here this morning. I'm guessing that earnings hasn't come out yet on that. MKC, little popping and spinning around here this morning on MKC. PAYX, doing kind of the same thing. And UNFI reporting this morning. So those are the notables for this morning. This afternoon, we've got CALM, LW, Nike, and RGP for the notable reports today. So just a few more to move around, and we don't have a whole lot this week, which is pretty normal for this time of year. We're going to be doing a whole lot of waiting for those next reports to come along. Beginning on the 11th with the big bank reports starting. So let's take a look at some of the stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube. Also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you can do me that favor and click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to continue to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who takes the time to do that. I do truly appreciate it. And for those of you who share these videos and continue to support the channel through the Buy Me a Coffee link, I very much appreciate that as well. Let's take a look at some of these stocks that could be setting up. Remember, everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence. Be very, very careful in the market. Always following your rules and your guidelines. Never ever blindly follow anyone else's trade ideas. Well, there's some things that you guys probably saw me talk about this yesterday, and I still think it's worth putting on a list and paying attention to, is Disney. Disney coming up out of this bottom in here, and you can see breaking through that 50-day moving average, heading up toward the 200-day. Caught an upgrade yesterday, but didn't get any major push to the upside yesterday. We're just kind of fading back to some price support in here. So I'd keep an eye on this. If this rest pulls back, finds that next area of support, look for a Disney to maybe move on higher here, and that opportunity that could pop. I put MSOS on my list yesterday. You can see we've got this little rally going on. So there's something going on in cannabis. I'm not exactly sure what inspired this to finally start waking up just a little bit. You can see we've been moving in a downtrend here for quite a while, but if I throw some moving averages on the chart, we just snuck above that 50-day moving average in here on MSOS. So any rest consolidation in here, I would look for that opportunity to see those buyers step on through, maybe pushing this to the upside. Watch that closely. And you can look at some of the other cannabis stocks out there showing the same kind of little lift here in the market. You might want to be continuing to pay attention to uranium. Uranium's had a really big surge to the upside here recently. Remember, we're restarting some of these old uranium plants because we need so much power for all these data centers. 3 Mile Island may be restarted just for Microsoft alone. And you can see pushing back up this nice little resting consolidation in here on this could set up that bullish pattern. There's our trend, and this is going to be significant, particularly if the dollar continues to weaken. Remember, in any rate cutting cycle, the dollar tends to weaken. So if that were to occur, all commodity prices usually go up. So take a look at CCJ in here. Look for that next opportunity for that to start moving up. You can look at things like UEC also making a big move up, finding that area here in the chart where we're coming in to this big downtrend. We've got a little support underneath. If we can find those buyers coming up in here, I would look at some of those uranium plays here in the market, could be coming around. That being said, we've got to also be keeping an eye on some of these precious metals. And I still think this needs to rest a little bit more here in gold. That's my personal opinion. Even though I do hold gold and I don't want to see it pull back, I still think it needs a little bit of rest, but we're getting a nice pop here today. So it is possible we could steepen this trend to the upside and continue to see gold stretching up on this uncertainty of the Middle Eastern wars, uncertainty about the political situation around the world. Of course, the dock workers strike raising some concerns on the economy. So watch that closely here in GLD. You might also want to be keeping an eye on silver. Silver making a bounce back up today. I think this still needs a little bit of rest and work in here, but you know, it's possible we have steepened or could steepen this trend into something like that. We'll have to watch, wait and see if those buyers start pushing up and see whether we can break through some resistance levels up here or not. So keep an eye on some of those other places that you guys know I've been talking about. Things like soybeans making that move out of this bottom. You can see breaking above that 50-day, running straight up here toward the 200-day. Any rest or pullback in here may set up an opportunity there. You could take a look at some of the agribusiness stocks that have been coming around. Take a look at Moo here in agribusiness, moving back up, looking pretty bullish here, coming into some resistance. So I would expect a little bit of rest, but these are showing some bullishness, and I think it's worth paying attention to. And you can just drop through this list. There's quite a few things in here that names that you know that are starting to come around, come out of bottoms. John Deere has been making that run here to the upside. A rest or pullback could have some opportunity. Certainly there are things in this list that are not bullish yet and actually showing a potential short. So you do need to pick through there for those stocks in that agribusiness area looking up. And a lot of them have to do with more of those hard asset commodity type plays in here to show that bullishness. Take a look at things like corn coming up here in the market. That's a nice little bullish pattern. And again, as the dollar weakens, you would expect to see these hard asset prices going higher, so keep an eye on those. Let's take a look at Roku in here. Roku's got a nice little resting consolidation, sliding out here to trend, and as always, I'm watching for that opportunity that may pop and begin that move on up to press into a little bit of resistance right here, and then a possible gap above that could be filled here in Roku. So keep an eye on that. That's looking pretty good here overall. This SYM, I'll put an alert on this chart because we've got a beautiful inverted head and shoulders pattern in this trade, but it faded back yesterday. If this continues to rest back toward this trend, then look for that opportunity in there that could pop back up. Things like CAVA still very, very bullish in the chart, although we have faded back. Resting in here, I would still watch for that opportunity if those bulls can engage in here, starting to push that up. PayPal, as you know, one I've been talking about a lot, coming up out of this bottom in the chart, still looking good. That opportunity here for a little bit of rest or consolidation, may be able to find that way to push on through this major resistance in the chart. Certainly worth keeping an eye on. How about Ross Stores? Ross has been resting here for quite a while on this support area. I'd be watching for that next opportunity that could push on through to the upside. When you talk about big tech, Apple looking in a pretty good pattern, trying to squeeze back up, even though the sales apparently, or pre-sales on their new phones and devices just not coming in real strong, but we're highly anticipating these earnings coming up on 11/7, and so every opportunity they can, they're squeezing in here. Watch this resistance up here. If that resistance rejects and we start breaking back down, well, that bullish attitude is going to go away real quickly for me. But watch that carefully here on Apple. Google also making a nice little bullish pattern move. This is an inverted head and shoulders pattern in here. You can see that pattern starting to play out, breaking through the neckline in here, pushing on up. This is coming off of a very long-term upside trend here for Google, and despite the big lawsuits that they're facing here, buyers still seem to be willing to continue to push that higher. So watch that closely on Google. So there's quite a few stocks for you to look at today. This video is running a little bit long. I want to wish you all a fantastic day, and just another reminder, if you can, RWO will be open today for everyone. Come on in. We're going to be discussing and talking about the e-learning class last night, answering questions. And of course, it doesn't just have to be about the e-learning class last night. It can be a question that you have on anything. You'll have access to me through the majority of the day, and you can ask any question you'd like. You guys take care. Have a great day. Hope to see you in the RWO room today. Wishing you all the best. Take care. Have an awesome day.